Sure.
What is this? Oh, the audio. Oh, the audio. I need to test this buzzer.
Yes.
Great. No. Yes, you weren't there this
You weren't there this morning. She was sitting next to you. Maybe, hey, Cassie, what does that Kelly walk up to him and go, I know, I can't understand how to while we were there, I downloaded the buzzer. I can read it and do this.
Yeah. I got my alarm sounds. It should be.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention. First of all, thank you for joining us this afternoon for our second of 3 listening sessions. I'm proud to be joined this afternoon by Mrs. Tiffany Da Silva and Mrs. Amy Messick. Amy is the Vice President of the Board. Earlier today, we were joined by Mrs. Rigby and Mr. Valentine. And then we will have 2 board members later today as we have our third listening session this evening. Just a couple of housekeeping things as we get started. You have signed up and your names were put on index cards and they'll be given to Mrs. Cassie Dietrich, who is our Public Information Officer. She will call you up to the podium. We only have until 5:30. When we did this morning, not everyone got to speak. And less people got to speak than should have, because when the timer went off at 3 minutes, people kept going. So we have a pretty loud timer. When your 3 minutes are up, you're done. So finish that sentence and let other people have the microphone. We want to hear from as many people as we can in this hour and a half as is possible. So please be respectful of your fellow citizens who are in the room, so that as many of you get the opportunity to share with us as you can. This is being recorded, and there will be a transcript of this available for the public and for the board members who aren't here. There will also be a summary created from each of the individual meetings. So if you don't want to read the whole transcript from an hour and a half, you can see the highlights from each of these 3 sessions. So again, thank you for being here. We are eager to hear your thoughts about this process. And Mrs. Dietrich, I'll turn it over to you.
Number 1 on our list is Kelly Sheffield.
Hello, my name is Kelly Sheffield and I live in Bristol Commons. I'm here not just as a parent, but as a neighbor, a community member, and someone who is frustrated by what feels like a never-ending cycle of redistricting and meetings for our community. Bristol Commons has taken the brunt of these changes for far too long. In my just 9 years of being a Dublin parent, this is the third time I've had to attend meetings about my children being redistricted. In 6 short years, we have gone from Wyandotte to Bailey, Carr to Grizzell, and now we are facing a move from Kaufman to Scioto. I attended the morning sessions and heard several residents from older Dublin neighborhoods mention how they should stay where they are because it has been that way for 20 to 50 years. Honestly, my first reaction was, that must be nice. What's that like? Can you imagine being redistricted 3 times in just 6 years with no end in sight? Enough is enough. It's time for Dublin City Schools to create a fair, long-term plan, one that doesn't repeatedly uproot the same neighborhoods. Bristol Commons should not always be forced to absorb the impact. It's also important to talk about the weight being given to these 8 criteria in this big decision. From my understanding, the rankings were determined by an internal planning committee that were handpicked by the superintendent. This committee is formed largely by district employees, many of whom are not even residents of Dublin themselves. This internal planning committee is a resource, not a fact-based, unbiased company. There's a great deal of subjectivity in this process of rankings. These decisions are far too important to be based on the opinion of a resource committee, with all due respect. Community feedback is imperative, so I truly thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you. When my husband and I moved to Bristol Commons 12 years ago, we chose it intentionally. We wanted our children to grow up in a community where they could walk or bike to the rec center, the pool, and all of their schools. We are both working parents with busy schedules, and that accessibility has been everything to us, absolutely everything. But please understand, this isn't just about logistics. If my 6th grader at Grizzell gets redistricted to Scioto, he will know less than 15% of the school population. That could create a very tumultuous start to what already is a difficult period in kids' life. It's about community, it's about the life we've built here, the connections our children have made with surrounding neighborhoods, and keeping Bailey together keeps our community together. Bristol Commons and Bailey belong with Kaufman, and our children belong with their community. So thank you very much.
Number 2, Tracy Borkin.
I just want to thank you guys for being here and listening to us. I'm Tracy Berkwin from Bristol Commons. I've been attending redistricting meetings for probably over a dozen years now, and I've tried to attend every single one. The reason for this, do you know anyone who's tried to attend all the meetings since the 2010s? Well, let me ask you this. How many times have your children been impacted directly by redistricting? How many other neighborhoods have dealt with this 3 times in the last 5 years and now are being asked to move for a 4th redistricting to a new high school? Anyone other than Bristol Commons? Can you imagine the mental anguish this would cause your child? Can you imagine changing jobs 4 times in 6 years? Now, let's imagine the path of a Bristol Commons child. Imagine you start kindergarten and have to make new friends. Then you're 8 and you're forced to move with just a handful of children, sometimes 2 or 3, to Bailey. Then COVID hits, you don't even get to meet anyone because you're stuck at home, and when you finally get to go back, you have to sit 6 feet apart with a mask on and can't even pick your classmates out of a lineup. For 2 years, you only get recess with the small class of kids who are in your class, so you still meet almost no one. Finally, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, start to make friends at Bailey. You're sent over to Grizzell, only to have these friends ripped from you at age 13 as they're carted off to Carr, and you're left behind. You're counting the days till your freshman year because you think, finally, I'll get to see my friends again that I worked so hard to make, only to learn your district wants to send you twice as far away, past your friends at Kaufman, to Scioto. You don't even get to take your friends from Grizzell with you that you made. This is exactly what my friends and neighbors are dealing with. My youngest is already out of middle school, so I'm not here for me. I'm here fighting for them. I can't even begin to imagine what they're feeling, but I do know what kind of toll this experience took on my son when he was forced to change both elementary and middle schools, never to see his Wyandotte friends in a class again until high school. The burden we are placing on this one small group of students is more than any 13 or 14-year-old should be asked to bear. We are a district of 90,000 people. How is it that the same kids are always taking the brunt of redistricting? I can rattle off endless statistics about why the traffic report, which was done by your experts, supports our claims to stay, and how 1% change in FRL, or free and reduced lunch, equals 20 students. Because if you increase the number of students at Scioto, even if it stays at 48%, which it is now, you will still have an additional 298 free and reduced lunch students, which is only 20 less than if you raise that number to 49%. I can tell you how almost no one in this room thinks it makes sense to move the people in the district who have nothing to do with the growth, as you will only be doing the same process again in a few years. I can tell you that we have nothing against Scioto or Jerome. They're both filled with wonderful people and opportunities. What we can't bear is having the same kids moved all alone. We are an island. But what I want to tell you most is, please, think about what you're doing to these kids. Think about what it would do to your child to move again and again and again and again. Try to understand. Put yourselves in our shoes. Have mercy on these kids.
Number 3, Yao Ching Mosley.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Marshausen and members of the board, for taking the time today to listen to all of our thoughts. I really appreciate your patience. My name is Yao Cheng, and after 3 very long years of looking for our forever home, we have found one in the Bristol Commons neighborhood. And we are so happy to be finally in the Dublin School District. We are all here today because we're trying to figure out what is best for our children's future, and that includes safety and the physical and mental well-being of our children and students. Regarding safety, I do not understand how under map 3, we would have to, instead of driving just 5 minutes to Kaufman, we are being moved all the way across the river, where during peak traffic hours can take 20 to 25 minutes to get to the school. This means that my son will not be able to attend all of the extracurricular activities after school because he can't bike there and he can't walk there. And also regarding safety, these are going to be young, new drivers who are going to have to pass a very busy bridge, especially in inclement weather days. And so I don't see how this is in their safety's best interest. Regarding their mental well-being, my son is a 4th grader. We moved from Hilliard into this district, and he was so excited to make new friends. And he is already very stressed and feeling very sad that potentially from Bailey to Grizel to have to then make new friends again at Scioto, because it's going to be less than 15% that he will know of the students there. And that makes him extremely sad. And it breaks my heart to have to tell him that most of the friends and friendships and deep bonds that he is making today will not be the ones that stay with him into Scioto High School. If socioeconomics is the one component that is being overweighed by 6 times as much as all of the other components talked about here, if that really is something that the district is really concerned about, I think we need to include all 3 high schools, including Jerome, in this conversation. And I think that needs to be a separate issue to be addressed outside of redistricting. Bailey area belongs at Kaufman. So thank you so much for your time.
Chang Liu.
Hey, thanks everybody for being here. My name is Chang Liu, and I live in Bristol Commons. And I'm here speaking because I care deeply about the safety, stability, and the fairness our children deserve. So the first point I want to point out is the October PIT score may look technical, but a closer look reveals serious flaws. As our neighbor has pointed out, first, the data collection. The 15 readers who scored the maps were never shown to represent the full impacted community or to have the accurate information to judge 8 complex planning criteria. So that means the numbers reflect opinions of a few, not the entire community. So the second, data analysis. One of our community members is doing this for living. So she did overall very complete analysis why this result is biased. So if anybody is interested, I have the handout. You can ask for it. Third, the data representation. I think there is no transparency. So we can't see how each reader scored or how outliers affected the results. So when the standard deviation is high, so we really need to look into the individual scores, but they are not represented to us. So given these issues, I think the PIT results cannot be trusted. So they should either be redone with transparent, or we just need to disregard it. But hey, I do appreciate this opportunity to dig into the statistics I learned 20 plus years ago. Although I wish I didn't have to. That's why I told my kids, so learn as much as you can in school because you don't know when and where you will have to use it. So second point, I heard some people using the number of students impacted as evidence to support a map. But number doesn't really tell how students are impacted. There are a huge difference between a 10% longer drive and a commute that doubles or triples, and between keeping the ability to walk or bike safely to school and losing that completely. So according to the transportation study, as you know, from the Bristol Commons, so our travel distance tripled and doubled, even doubles or tripled. And then, but it's just not, it's about 3 times longer, but it's not just time. So we will have many students walking or biking will no longer safe or even possible. So besides the more than double distance, there are the new route at 5 major roadway crossing and deep uphill grade from the river. So
I need to call the next person.
okay, thank you.
6, Elias Miller. Oh, I skipped 5. Kevin Cooper. Sorry. I apologize. I said it to suck.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members and Dr. Marshausen. Thank you again for letting us come. My name is Kevin Cooper. I live in Bishop Crossing, Bishop Run, Planning Block 56, which is literally across the street from Jerome High School. I have a junior at Jerome, a 8th grader at Carr, and a 6th grader at Carr. And that's not an exaggeration. If you look at the planning block, we are literally directly across the street from Jerome High School. In fact, we're the only planning block that's being redistricted that is directly across from our current high school in map 3, I should say. Map 1, we are in our current assignment at Jerome, but in map 3, we are literally being moved to Kaufman. There is no other planning block across this district that's getting that removed. In fact, I did a little research and I looked at all of the Central Ohio districts that have multiple high schools. There is not one neighborhood across from a high school that is forced to go to another high school across town. Now, I didn't stop with Central Ohio just in case that was an anomaly. I checked Cincinnati area, I checked the Cleveland area, and I checked the Toledo area. There is not one neighborhood across the street from a high school that is proposed to be redistricted somewhere else. It's like the neighborhood across from Scioto being redistricted all the way over to Kaufman. The own traffic study that was recently released it validates this claim by saying we are 0.7 miles away from the neighborhood entrance to Jerome High School. We're 4 miles from Kaufman. A little perspective, we're actually 6 miles from Hilliard-Davidson. So it's not that far. I mean, it's a far drive for us to get, and that's on conservative numbers, where I think the traffic study would be a little bit more time to get us all the way from one side of the district to Kaufman. I think what's interesting is a historical fact about Bishop is that when Jerome was being built, so was our neighborhood. In fact, the studies that they did showed the growth of the west side of the district has Jerome and Bishop Crossing building at the same time. In fact, the Bishop family owned the land that Jerome is built on that our neighborhood is named after. And recently, our elementary school, Bishop Run Elementary, is named after the same family. And one more fun fact is the woman whose mother that was named after still lives in the house that's across the street from Jerome. So these have broken out all of the 8 criteria that have been set forth. And I think you have to understand that proximity has always been a core value. We were once redistricted to Eversole, but then we're redistricted back to Carr because it's closer. We used to go to Glacier Ridge. We're redistricted to Bishop Run, which makes sense because we're closer. There's no reason to move us out of Jerome, and in some ways being collateral damage for the weighting of other criteria. So we are asking you to keep us at Jerome High School because we are literally across the street. It would be unprecedented to move a planning block or a neighborhood that's directly across from a high school anywhere else. Thank you.
We've all spent a lot of time looking at these maps, comparing numbers, looking at boundaries, and considering trade-offs. It's clear there's no solution. There's no perfect solution. We'll get there. Going back to the current scoring, I would like to challenge the results and the evaluation of 2 of the criteria, diversity and natural boundaries. I would like to propose a question. What, in your mind, would a map look like that scores 10 out of 10 in regards to diversity? We don't actually know how maps 1 or 3 were scored on that measure, but we do know that map 3 scored higher. And yes, it does move the needle slightly on the one metric that we have available to use, free and reduced lunch. Although, as we learned at the last school board meeting, that metric comes with its own flaws and compromises. The bigger point is this: neither map 1 or 3 approaches what a 10 out of 10 would look like. Jerome remains completely insulated from any changes that would affect its numbers. A true 10 out of 10 map would balance free and reduced lunch populations across all high schools, and none of the current proposals comes close to that. To be clear, I'm not proposing that that is what we should strive for, because that would disproportionately impact the other 7 criteria, which are all weighted equally. All I'm asking is that if map 1 hypothetically scores a 2 out of 10 on diversity, map 3 maybe earns a 3 out of 10. It is nowhere close that it is a perfect solution regarding that criteria. Second, regarding natural boundaries. The 2 biggest and most obvious boundaries we have within the footprint of our district are the Scioto River and I-270. I'd argue that map 3 doesn't take the river into between Bailey Elementary neighborhoods and Scioto High School seriously enough as a significant and natural boundary. We've heard from Cropper that is considered contiguous, but if this were the Oregon Trail, I would not risk fording that river. You would be lucky to lose only a couple of oxen. More importantly, rivers are one of the most common natural boundaries used to separate entire countries. So it's hard to see how anyone could reasonably consider Bailey Elementary contiguous with the Scioto footprint. At the end of the day, This is about finding the fairest and most practical balance among many factors, but I would just ask to please be honest in your evaluation of the criteria. It's a shame that option 9 was not brought forward because I think it does a good job of mitigating a lot of the feedback that we've heard, and oh, that was perfect.
Thank you. Huston Hall.
Hi, my name is Houston Hall. I live in the Bailey community. Bear with me while I read my tiny screen here. I do not know how anyone can watch the last 2 board meetings and come to any conclusion other than social economics is the primary redistricting criteria of this board. Outside of Mr. Valentine and a couple quick comments from other board members, social economics has completely consumed this board's discussion. It seems the only time the board is not discussing social economics is when the superintendent asks the board for guidance if he should give more weight to social economics, at which point the board becomes silent. Although diversity was one of the 3 reasons my family moved to Kaufman neighborhood, it is but one of many factors that goes into our children's K-12 educational journey. It is not the only factor that deserves discussion and consideration. I would like to remind the board that one of the primary responsibilities is to represent the community. Although total survey responses and emails supporting each of the 3 maps was not released, it seems clear based on the petition signatures and the voices here tonight that map 1 is overwhelmingly preferred over map 3. I would like to challenge the internal planning committee to look at the entire K-12 journey and not just 1 or 2 data points when assigning scores to maps, to let the data form a conclusion, and to be careful not to fall victim to confirmation bias. It was disappointing to say the least that map 3-1 feeder pattern based primarily on car feeding 100% to Kaufman, without any thought given to the K-12 educational journey of all of Dublin students. There was no consideration given to the negative aspects of forcing car to feed 100% to Kaufman. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Frankie Cleary. I have 4 kids. One is at Kaufman now. Our next is at Grizel, so her fate is uncertain. And my youngest is 3. He won't hit high school for another decade. With the pattern of splitting and redistricting that keeps hitting my neighborhood, Bristol Commons, if we're hit by another redistricting a decade from now, my 4 kids could potentially end up at 3 different high schools by the time my youngest gets there. My main concern is about how these maps are being scored. You may have heard this already, so I've made a simple flyer that walks you through it. The current method spreads weighting unevenly using diversity and proximity as my examples, and using real current scores. Diversity has a 6-time more impact on the final score than proximity. There's a joke, don't do public math, so I won't, but I've written it down on the flyer for anyone who wants a concise explanation. Over the last couple of weeks, our community has sent hundreds of chat messages, dozens of emails, and a small business's worth of Excel sheets around our neighborhood. The common thread I keep seeing is that no one knows the truth behind the data. Feeder patterns, FRL demographics, traffic, utilization, data is data, but the different neighborhoods should be able to agree on the base facts, but we don't have it. Now different people can't agree, and I'm concerned how we'll reach a fair conclusion when we can't agree on the base. Quote from the DCS FAQ, if one criterion is given too much weight, it can unintentionally undermine another, which will negatively impact students, families, or district as a whole. My ask, honor this commitment. In the final days, commit to publicizing and re-reviewing your data that backs these decisions. My hope is that in reviewing and fixing the scoring system, Map 1 will get the fair look it deserves, and that my 4 kids will be able to grow up with the same shared experience of going to the same high school. Thank you for listening. Your time and concern is appreciated.
Nine, Lynette Mel? Mel.
As she said, I'm Lynette Mell. Hello, thank you so much for your time this evening. This is a very important process. I am here representing my neighborhood, Bristol Commons, Planning 107, which is 46 kids. I'm also here on behalf of Kaufman High School. I'm the current PTO president. I've served in that role for 5 years. I've been on the board for 7. So I have a very good understanding as my children have matriculated through. I have one who graduated from Kaufman, and I have a senior this year. I do have questions about the scoring system. I feel like it was a subjective voting situation. I'm not sure if we all clearly, as you have heard, understand the exact data points that were used to score. So we really like accurate data, perhaps make it a data-driven process, index all of the criteria to 100, compare the percentages, and then re-look at map 1 and 3, which has been, very clearly said that that's kind of what you're looking at is 1 and 3. So I'm supporting map 1. If 3 is going to be what it is, we really need to rethink it. As you have heard, our neighborhood has been redistricted at the elementary and middle school level, so you're talking about 3.7% of the kids if they would come to Scioto, which is a wonderful school. I'm not discounting that. But I'm speaking from the diversity that our neighborhood has and that Kaufman has. It is wonderful. It has been awesome to experience and to help, volunteer on that PTO level. Utilization, Kaufman is underutilized on all maps. So I really urge you, look at map 1 or revise map 3 to keep the utilization better because it decreases on all of them. Our area is definitely decreasing, so we need to make sure that we keep kids at Kaufman. It's close proximity. Both my husband and I work. My kids didn't have the opportunity to bike or walk. They would not have done sports. They would not have done orchestra. They needed to be able to walk. They definitely cannot walk. You've seen the transportation data that it is not easy for us to turn out left of our neighborhood. We're going to now have potentially under 3 kids driving and buses busing people where they're currently in the walk zone for Jerome in front of our neighborhood. So please think about that because the proximity, the feeder pattern has been discussed, okay? The feeder pattern is disrupted. Bailey, Grizel, that small cohort of kids is just getting smaller and smaller. Please use the major roads and the way that we can get there to keep our kids there. I love Kaufman dearly. I will continue to support the PTO. I will continue to support my neighborhood. Again, I have a senior. I want my neighbors to have that opportunity. Please support map 1 or revision 3. Thank you.
10, Kyle Finley.
My name is Kyle Finley. Just a little background about myself and my family. My mom was a teacher at Indian Run when it was the only elementary school in Dublin. She opened up Riverside Elementary. She opened up Bailey Elementary. I myself went to Scottish Corners. I went to Sells. I graduated from Kaufman. My wife went to Thomas, went to Grizel, graduated from Kaufman. My kids are at Bailey, Grizel. I have a freshman at Kaufman. My brother went to Scottish Corners, Bailey, Grizel, Kaufman, and Jerome. My sister-in-law went to Deer Run, Grizel, and Jerome. My nieces and nephews are at Bailey and are at Eli Penny right now. I know Dublin. There's a reason why I moved back to Dublin and all of my family members moved back to Dublin from Chicago, from Charlotte, myself, from Lexington, Kentucky, is because of the Dublin community. We know that it's strong, and I know that it's been in my blood for 41 years that I've lived here, almost, right? So map 1 to me, proximity, we're closer to Jerome than we are to than to Scioto. Natural boundaries, it's clear as day if you look at a map. Future growth, map 3 has Scioto for higher future growth than map 1 does. But it's the feeder pattern to me, and that's what the relationships are. That's why I moved back with my wife. That's why my brother and sister-in-law moved back. That's why my brother-in-law also moved back. If you look at the K-12 student journey, right? So Thomas Elementary, 100% goes to Sells. Wright Elementary, 100% goes to Sells. Indian Run, 100% goes to Sells. What about Bailey? What about Brandon, my neighborhood, right? What are my neighbors doing? Well, only about 66% go to Grizel. A third now go to Carr. Okay, so in map 1, we would go to Kaufman. We have friends that are there. We have people in both throughout the K-12 journey that would go to Kaufman, right? So if you're not in MAP 1 or MAP 3, right? So MAP 1 has Thomas, 75% going to Scioto. They have all those other people they've made connections with at cells that are also going to Scioto, right? Right. MAP 3, 67% go to Scioto. They have friends that are going to Scioto. Indian Run, 67% in both maps are going to Scioto. They have other people they've known at cells. I'm an 8th grade math teacher myself in Olentangy. I know how redistricting is terrible, but I know how relationships matter. And what matters even more is my daughter in 8th grade. She was one of 106 kids that left Bailey in 5th grade, the class of 2030 to be. 26 of those kids are now at Carr. So if you take out the Carr kids that are going to Kaufman, if you take out the Grizel kids that were going to Jerome, and you take out the kids that are no longer in Dublin schools, you're down to about 66 kids. Okay? So next year, she's going to be 5% of this school's population. 5%. Right? She's a minority at Grizel right now coming from Bailey. She's not 100% like the other elementaries are. She's a minority there. She'll be a minority at Scioto. And if you don't believe me and you just want to talk about numbers, well, let me put some names with some faces with some numbers. These are, I crossed out every single, my 8th grade daughter crossed out every kid from Bailey from that class in 5th grade yearbook that will not be going with her to high school. So if you want to see the faces of the 66 kids, these are the faces of the 66 kids that will be here, not with friends and not even with their big siblings, their older brothers and sisters to look out with them. They're on their own. You can't do that.
My name is Christy, and I'm a resident of Amberley with a current 7th and 9th grader. I am strongly in support of MAP 1, which I often hear referred to as the common sense map. It makes sense visually. It groups neighborhoods together in logical ways. It has completely contiguous zones and wisely uses 270 and Scioto River as natural boundaries. It puts the most students to their closest proximity high school. MAP 3 looks less like redistricting and more like a dissection of a community. And to what end? It has been claimed that MAP 3 will help with a single criteria, which seems to be taking up the vast majority of redistricting conversation at recent board meetings, socioeconomics. But the problem when it comes to trying to solve for the socioeconomic balance is, to my understanding, we're only able to use free and reduced lunch data. I've also been told that the data currently displayed on the maps for free and reduced lunch is incorrect. So at this point, we're using minimal and potentially incorrect data, merely guessing that MAP 3 will maybe help with a single criteria, while we know with certainty that it's blatantly missing at least 5 criteria: proximity, contiguous zones, natural boundaries, transportation efficiencies, and feeder patterns for families. Just think about this. We currently have 15 elementary schools. I believe about 4 currently split into 2 high schools. Under MAP 3, a single elementary. That's 1 out of 15 elementary schools. Bailey will split into 3 high schools. I don't think there is a person in this room that can reconcile that, if we're being honest. It is more than a 3-way split of an elementary school. It is the fact that an island has been carved out of MAP 3 with Bailey neighborhoods, isolating them from where their Scioto peers would live. They're no longer able to walk or bike to school or extracurricular activities, or even their new classmates' houses. And they'll be passing neighborhoods on the way to the closest bridge, neighborhoods that were untouched and are still attending Kaufman. Our Bailey neighborhoods are used as a scapegoat with merely a guess or a subjective ranking that we may help with a single criteria while abandoning all others. In MAP 3, both Jerome Village and Muirfield are untouched. They are 2 of the largest master planned communities in all of Central Ohio, for which you have determined stay together no matter what, because they're single neighborhoods in your mind. So both of these enormous neighborhoods are going to feed into Jerome, the one high school with an overpopulation issue, where all of the growth is occurring. And this makes sense for future growth. I just can't see it. Very little about MAP 3 makes sense. It's a dissection, a fragmenting of our community that will have very real impacts on small sections of the map that have been selected as tributes to solve for a problem that we did not create.
The IPT scoring that looked favorable to map 3 over map 1 used faulty, oversimplified methods that inadvertently gave added weight to the socioeconomic category. It was ultimately incorrect, subjective, and it's misleading data that needs to be revised with the direction of professionals that have a depth of knowledge in data analytics. Please adopt map 1 or revise map 3 to avoid the scapegoating of Bailey neighborhoods.
Good afternoon. My name is Lawrence. Thanks for providing this opportunity to share my opinion. I'd like to speak for the interest for renter families who rent apartments or condos in an apartment complex in Dublin community. In the current school map and the proposed map 1, there is at least one apartment complex in the district of each high school. However, in map 3, there are apartments for Kaufman and Scioto, but not for Jerome. That means the renter families are taking away their rights and options to choose Jerome. Otherwise, they may have to buy or rent a house in the new school map. Apartment complexes are attractive for families for many reasons. Small families may just think 2 bedrooms apartment is big enough and doesn't like big house for extra housework and costs. Some families may not be able to afford rent of a house, or their income even cannot qualify for application because most house requires income equal to 3 months of rent. Or maybe they like a timely and comprehensive service. To say that the renter families can just rent a house to access Jerome is simply not realistic. Today, if you go to Zillow and look at the map 3 Jerome areas, there's only 10 units of rental houses there. All are 3 to 4 bedroom houses with minimum rent well above affordable range of many families. By removing the apartment complex option from the Jerome zone, the district make access to that school contingent on high income or property ownership. It's not in line with the purpose of this school redistricting plan, which claims to ensure equitable access to educational resources and opportunities for all students. I have big question marks on how it's possible map 3 can gain the highest score in criteria 2, diversity. Dublin has a significant renter population. Around 20% Dublin households are renter occupied, and we pay taxes indirectly through our rent. This substantial portion of the community deserves equal optionality. I urge the board to reject any plan that creates a 2-tier system where school access is dictated by property type. I strongly suggest the final boundary map, whether it's revised map 1 or map 3, must honor the principle of diversity by including at least one apartment complex within the attendance territory of each high school. These small changes ensure that all Dublin families, regardless whether they rent an apartment or own a house, have the equitable opportunity to choose a neighborhood. Thank you.
13?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for allowing me to speak. My name is Ishraq Aleem. I'm from the Bristol Commons community. I kind of wanted to take a first principles approach to this problem. The primary reason we're all here, we're spending time, we're spending money, is because Jerome is overpopulated. And because of that, I think that should be the primary objective of the outcome of everything that's going on. In map 3, within 10 years, Jerome reaches 111% utilization. This is the highest utilization for any high school across any of the 3 maps that were provided. Even Cropper, the company that is a third-party independent that we paid to do this, has said that we'll likely come back here within 5 years if map 3 is used as a basis. My second point is that the 8 criteria are very important. However, redistricting is a specific tool and does not solve all the problems with the 8 criteria. With that being said, map 1 has clear contiguous zones. Regarding feeder patterns, if Kaufman becomes redistricting spot. Grizel, which feeds both Jerome and Scioto under map 3, would have to be split 3 ways if we adopt map 3. Under map 1, it only spot redistricting only spots 2 ways when Jerome gets overcrowded. Regarding close proximity, we heard from our neighbors in the Bishop community that they live right across the street, and they don't even go to the same high school. Transportation efficiency. Where I live in Bristol Commons and Bailey, we see a 200% increase in car rides times. And the other comment regarding safety, we've heard a number of stories about mental health issues from the Bristol Commons communities. Those kids have been redistributed 3 times, including during COVID, where it's one screen to another, right? And I think mental health should be considered regarding the safety of the children. And the final point I wanted to make, and this is to reiterate, redistricting does not solve socioeconomic inequities. In fact, in a lot of studies, it simply increases it because kids know why they're being moved around. So in conclusion, I hope map 1 is adopted as the basis of whatever map you ultimately decide. Thank you so much.
Brett.
Hi, my name is Brett Page. My wife and I and our family, we've raised our kids right behind Scioto High School for the last 20 years. Proud Scioto graduates, went to Chapman, went to Davis. So we have a different experience than what's been talked about so far. I'm going to come at this from a different angle because I think about what we want, and I think every parent wants here, is the highest quality of education and experiences for our kids. And we chose to build right behind Scioto High School, plant our feet there. This is where our kids are going to grow up. And I hear a lot of that from other families from various parts of the community. I've served on boards and the commissions for the city. We're all together trying to create high quality stuff. What I see is there are some things here at Scioto that I would like to focus on whatever maps come up with, is that we look at the needs of our 3 schools and differentiate in equitable ways to enhance the quality for all 3 of our schools to the umpteenth level. And doing the same model across all 3 high schools at exactly the same is not getting equitable results. So right now, you look at college career academic workforce readiness indicator for the state report card, Jerome 5-star, Kaufman 4-star, Scioto 2-star. That upsets me, okay? When I look at the data that goes into that indicator, I start to see some differentiations that bother me as a Scioto parent graduate. Like, we have only 29% of our kids at Scioto that are remediation free on the ACT or SAT, compared to 55% at Kaufman and 75% at Jerome. That should annoy Kaufman parents too, that that's not equally as high. We are doing better at actually value-added growth for socioeconomically disadvantaged families. When you look at our state proficiency test scores, we're doing better by about average 10% across the board compared to Kaufman. It's not even a comparison against Jerome because there's not enough of a socioeconomic disadvantaged cohort to look at. ELL, we're actually doing English language learners, we're averaging about 10% less, even though we have slightly more than Kaufman. So looking at programming and using that data to look at outcomes, as a parent, I want to see that. I want to see more kids at all 3 schools achieving honors diplomas. We're getting doubled by Kaufman and Jerome in that area for honors diplomas and people who are actually achieving AP high scores and IB high scores. So those are things that I hope for the future generations that we look at, and that means there's going to be some different equity conversations going on. I'm very happy with where my kids all went to school. Last thing, the whole travel thing, think about those kids who live down by Riverside, who live down by the Graders on Bethel, and down all the way down by Scioto. I mean, past Sawmill and Bethel. Do they ever get to walk to school? Is it safe for them to walk to school? Never. And that's been for 30 years that way. 30 years of that equity conversation that's been pushed to the side. So I understand what they're talking about their conversation, about their travel. But what's been ignored is a lot of families with lower socioeconomic backgrounds who aren't able to come in here to speak to be able to be advocated for. So please think about them when you're coming to this conversation.
Jody Schaefer.
There's not that to follow, so I'll try my best. Hi, I am Jody Schaefer. We live in Bishop's Run, which is right next to Jerome High School and can be seen from our house. We have a high schooler and an 8th grader. Unfortunately, neither option 1 nor option 3, are positive for us. Option 3 redistricts us to Kaufman, although we are right across the street from Jerome. Option 1 keeps us as Jerome. However, because our 8th grader is at Carr, option 3 would separate her from 90% of her Carr classmates, and all of her friends will be redistricted to Kaufman. This is already after being split from half of her school after coming from Glacier Run Elementary. So rather than choosing one of the 2 negative map options, and they're negative to a lot of people, I will address an issue that impacts everyone that has an older sibling in high school and a younger sibling in middle school and is being redistricted. In this case, the district has made clear that existing high schoolers can stay at their current high school even if they are redistricted. This is a positive decision, but has negative implications. Currently, the younger sibling will be forced to go to the new school, therefore creating a situation where siblings are attending different high schools at the same time, potentially against the wishes of the family. Having siblings at 2 different high schools creates transportation issues, scheduling issues, and stress to the family, not to mention the emotional aspect of having children that would otherwise attend a school together experience major high school events at different times and places. You might argue that the older sibling has the right to go to the new school, therefore eliminating the problem. However, the district gave the older sibling the right to stay at their existing school because they knew that taking kids from their current high schools would have a variety of negative implications on such students. Therefore, I respectfully ask that you grant a one-time exemption to any current middle schooler that will at some point be in high school at the same time as an older sibling and is redistricted to stay at their current districted high school if their current or their older sibling and family elects to stay at their original high school. If the older sibling elects to go to the new school, then the younger sibling must go as well. If the family decides that the older sibling will stay at the current school and the younger sibling will go to a new school because that is what works for them, that's also fine. The key is that the family has been given the opportunity to weigh the options and make the decision that works for them. The decision should rest with the family. Last, I made this request in person to a school board member during this process. She, while nice and very receptive to my thoughts, made it clear that other families, and she specifically, had already addressed this issue with the superintendent, who firmly denied such requests without further discussion. With all due respect, a decision as momentous as redistricting and all the implications thereto should not be made by one individual. I therefore also request that at a minimum, all such decisions be made in a manner where the superintendent and at a minimum, at least each board member has an equal vote. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Lucky number 16.
Thank you, Dr. M. and School Board, for this opportunity. I'm Sven Christensen from Llewellyn Farms. My family and those before us have been going to Dublin Kaufman since Jack Nicklaus was dreaming of a Tier 1 golf course. For those of us that had children in Dublin, youth sports, it's really special when you get to travel around and meet new families and play sports together with those outside of your neighborhood. Sometimes we've lost sight of that, and I think we have in this process. I know this is not a question and answer session, but I do have a few questions. Why are the areas north of Brand Road and Shawnee Hills that have been part of Scioto High School previously not been included in any of these redistricting maps? Why did this process utilize just a few people when plans are best with multiple advisors? Do you understand why there has been such a negative response to this process? It's not just because people have to switch schools and just drive a little further. It's because this process has been lacking. It has lacked transparency, diligence, and a detailed focus on a great educational outcome for everyone. Map 1 deliberately puts all the lowest performing schools into one high school. We had a foreshadowing of this situation at CELS this year, and it did not work well.
Adding an extra 250 economically disadvantaged students to a school where 48% are already receiving subsidized lunch is a real adverse effect on the school's productivity. This is not DEI, this is just common sense. What we did get in this process is a gerrymandered situation where many divisive maps were presented to us, and it got us arguing with each other over some ridiculous planning block situations that can be fixed. We've not been presented with details or traffic or residential information, and I know we're scrambling around now to get it. Map 1 takes over 5 neighborhoods in the south that run up and along France Road, up and down, and even part across the bridge, and it takes us crisscrossing from the southwest to the northeast part of our city, right in the middle of business hours. The Internal Planning Committee recognized the benefits of Map 3, and we recognize that the insights are helpful, and we hope ours are considered as well. Map 3 disrupts the least students, keeps the traffic down in Old Dublin, honors the history of our southwest neighborhoods, and keeps them from crisscrossing to the northeast through Old Dublin. History is getting made right now. Will we be proud of our redistricting process? Can we, with a straight face, answer why we chose a certain map? It can happen, but it's going to take leadership to pause, really think through the information and details, and develop a good plan for all 3 high schools. You can defend Map 3. It scores highest on the key criteria, and it should be the basis for any final map. Thank you.
Summer Lou.
Here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for taking our time to be with us tonight. So my name is Summer Liu, and I am here speaking on behalf of the residents of Planning Block 137 and Westbury community. And our neighborhood just located south of Brand Road, actually just right beside Bishop Crossing. And we were kind of like disappointed that our community being so close to Jerome High School were not discussed in the last Board of Education meeting. And then we are here tonight with a simple and heartfelt request to keep our neighborhood at Jerome. So our community sits within safe and well-established walking distance of Jerome. Many of our families can literally see the school from our backyard. And our students can walk or bike safely, and parents can be part of school life without long commutes. This connection to Jerome is more than geographic. It is emotional and generational. Our children already participate in Jerome's programs, sports, events, and then for many of our families, proximity to Jerome was one of the biggest reasons they chose to buy their house. So it represents both a sense of belonging and a shared identity in our community. Because our closeness to Jerome, we currently there's no bus service for us, and making us one of the most transportation efficient area in the district. So moving our neighborhood to a school several miles away would not only displace our kids from their school, but also would create new bus routes, increase fuel and operational costs. To show how deeply this issue matters, our residents came together to sign this door-to-door petition I'm going to share with you later. So nearly every household in this Planning Block 137 is in support of staying at Jerome. Every signature represents a family that values safety, community, and fairness. We truly believe that keeping our neighborhood at Jerome aligns with both common sense and the district's guideline principles of proximity, efficiency, and fairness. So reassigning a walkable neighborhood contradicts all these principles and disrupts a well-functioning, safe, and efficient community school connection that already exists. We understand that boundary decisions are complex, but we ask that you take this into account as you make your final decision. So we're really not asking for special treatment, but we're asking for logic and fairness. Thank you so much for your time. your service to Dublin and your commitment to us. Thank you.
18, Will Cowdis.
All right, you guys having fun yet? Yep, okay. Wrote out a lot of this. I think a lot of my points have been very clear. I live in the Brandon neighborhood. My name's Will Caldis. Our kids will hopefully be, my son will be attending Bailey next year, and I certainly understand a lot of the frustration and concerns about all the maps that have been shared. But I think one point continues to stick out when talking about map 3, that map 3 disrupts the least amount of kids overall in the district. But in order to get that score that made the feeder patterns better or whatever it was, you're ultimately cutting out and impacting children across their experience through the Dublin school system. And I'm sure there are adjustments that can be made to both map 1 and map 3. But as we're talking through this, it's 2 communities that are having this conversation about, what does equity look like across the district. 2 communities that are being almost feels like pitted against each other, when ultimately the children's experience and their friendships, their mental well-being, I think is important. And when we do look at map 1 and look at what it does for our peers that are going to be going to Scioto, if they are redistricted from Kaufman, they do get to stay with their middle school peers 100% through that process into Scioto. And I think that is something that we would love to have in the Bailey community and love to have when going to Griselle. So I hope that you'll consider map 1, hope that you'll consider if there's going to be changes, thinking about the kids that are impacted and not standing up here and saying that, yes, this is a better feeder pattern, but this 15% per year going to Scioto are going to know such a small amount. So thank you all for your time and good luck.
19, Allie Reagan.
Hi, my name's Allie Regan. I am Waterford Village, but I am here for, sorry, I'm not a good public speaker. I'm here for Old Dublin. Our neighborhood is 94 kids in the planning block. 24 kids roughly will start next year as a freshman, hopefully continue at Kaufman. So we are a very small, but a very close group neighborhood. Our closest kiddo is 0.7 miles to Kaufman. Our ask is very simple. There's little risk to it. We are asking, whether it be map 1 or map 3, to be added on to go to Kaufman. It's a simple ask. 17% of kids from Carr were redistricted to cells last year. We were back with our Indian Run friends, and on both maps 1 and 3, we are split from them again. So the kids that came from Carr will split off to go to Kaufman, and right now on both maps 1 and 3, we will come to Scioto. And so that feeder pattern has been disrupted for us. Obviously our goal is to stay like Bailey with our kids at Kaufman. Utilization, the Indian Run cells have been redistricted 3 times in the last 5 years. When we look at Kaufman in 10 years, we are looking at enrollment decreasing to 79%. So in keeping our 94 kids, we're not adding, we're not taking away. We are just asking for that same pattern to happen for our kiddos. In regards to kind of mental health and wellness, I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I value mental health. I value students' mental health, and I value educators' mental health. And I think we have to be very mindful of, topics such as spot redistricting. How disruptive is that for our kids? It is extremely disruptive. In our country today, 1 in 2 teenagers are suffering from some kind of mental illness. We look at socioeconomic status. When we have a higher rate of that, we have decreased social support, poor adjustment, increases in social concern, anxiety, depression, increase in behavioral problems. We cannot make this worse. We have to get this right, especially for Scioto. We have to look at bigger cohorts if we are going to bring them across the river. We have to look at potentially Muirfield Village. We have to look at Shawnee Hills potentially. We have to look at equity across the district and what that looks like. It is not our neighborhood. You'll look at the data, I will pass it to you. We don't do anything either way. So we are asking to be added to map 1 or map 3 as a neighborhood to continue to Kaufman. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lucina Abrahamian. I'm one of Bristol Common residents. I've lived there for more than 12 years now. I have 3 children, 1 high schooler and 2 elementary school kids. And you have heard from my neighbors, and I will stress this again. We have been redistricted many times. Our kids went through redistriction, stress, and all the negative impact that redistriction brings. And I believe our neighborhood needs a break. We all believe that we need a break from this. The important part is, and I do appreciate previous parent who is a profession in psychological, sphere, and she brought up the mental health. And I do want to stress this again and again for Bristol Common kids, for Bailey Elementary kids who are going to be pulled away from Grizzle Middle School, and they are going to be shipped across the river to Scioto High School, where they will know only probably 4% of kids for the first 8th graders. I think this will have significant negative impact on their mental health. This impact might be even long-lasting or maybe irreversible. So please do not disregard this. This is very important for our students, for their mental health. All the friendship, all the peer connection they have built through K through 8th grade is going to disappear for them. So they have to, 14, 13-year-olds, start making friends at high school. Any 14-year-olds will make friends at high school? That's not easy. I think they make high school when they're in elementary school and they already have their group of friends that are comfortable with. And that brings their confidence up, that brings their motivation, their academic succession, and all of this will have very negative impact if you adopt MAP 3. And our Bristol Common kids and Bailey Elementary kids will be isolated socially from their neighborhoods. We have boundaries with all the neighborhoods that are going to Jerome High School, some are going to Kaufman High School, none that are going to Scioto High School. So MAP 3 is creating this isolating island for our children, for our communities. And we do not have an opportunity to help our kids to make more friends, to spend their extracurricular activities after school. And another thing is transportation or the distance, proximity. Now, my high schooler can walk, can bike through just neighborhood streets. No major roads, nothing to cross, everything is safe. He can get there in 4 minutes. But taking them to Scioto, this is going to increase their travel time. This is going to put the kids effect on their safety. So they have to now cross 5 major roads if they choose to bike, and I will not feel comfortable for my kids to bike. So please choose MAP 1 or make some changes in MAP 3 and keep us at Kaufman.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. I think I have the distinction of being the oldest guy that's come up here today. I'll be 70 in February. My wife Debbie and I, she's the one back there wearing the Keep Bailey at Kaufman t-shirt. Dug the very first foundation in the Amberley subdivision in 1994, and we moved into our house in 1995, 30 years ago. I have a 45-year-old son, 40-year-old daughter. She was speaker number 11, who both attended Kaufman, had great experiences. We know and have known for 30 years that Scioto is a very good school also. The whole Dublin community, the whole Dublin school district is very good. My daughter's family has a freshman at Kaufman right now and a 7th grader at Grizel. Under the proposed plan of MAP 3, one would be going to Scioto as a sophomore, and the other older one would be a junior at Kaufman. So you can imagine the complexity of, they both play 3 sports, you know, which game do you go to, all those things. It's really about proximity for the Bailey Elementary School subdivisions, how close they are and how safe it is to get to school. I'll tell you a little story about my 45-year-old son. When we first moved, the very first summer, it was 1995, he was biking down Brand Road to football practice. And a young man pulled over in front of him in a Jeep and said, you know, I think I saw you at practice yesterday. Why don't I throw your bike in my Jeep, and from now on I'll take you to practice. He was living down in Bel Air, very close. Not the same subdivision, but again, continuous, close by. He took him to practice for, you know, every day that year, and they became good friends. Years later, after high school, after college, my son gets married, and that young man who picked him up that day became his best man. So it talks about the kind of relationships our community has with neighborhoods that are very close together. But again, I focus on, and I want you guys to focus on, the safety of keeping the Bailey Elementary School subdivisions in a place where they can walk and bike without having to cross busy roads. The busiest road is Dublin Road, and there's a tunnel that takes the people from Donegal Cliffs and our subdivision, Amberley, under that road. Easy to walk, easy to bike, safe, and you know, what do you do as a grandfather? You take kids around to practice a lot, and I'm picking up kids in Brandon, Bristol Commons, taking them to Kaufman or Grizel. I do that regularly, and I want to continue to do that for my grandkids. So thank you for the opportunity here. Please keep the Bailey Elementary School subdivisions at Kaufman.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Sullivan, and I'm here to respectfully express my strong opposition to any redistricting proposal that would reassign the Amberley neighborhood from Kaufman to Scioto. I want to begin by acknowledging the complexity of this process. Balancing enrollment and planning for growth is no small task, but I also believe that when we make decisions that affect thousands of students and families, we must hold ourselves to the highest standards of transparency, logic, and care. Let me speak specifically to MAP 3, which proposes moving Bailey Elementary students to Scioto High School. The MAP fails on 5 of the 8 stated criteria, including close proximity, establishing contiguous zones, maximizing transportation efficiencies, using major roads and natural boundaries, and creating clear feeder patterns and continuity. First, let's talk about feeder patterns. When the middle schools were redistricted, one of the guiding principles was that each middle school would feed into no more than 2 high schools. MAP 3 violates that principle. Grizel Middle School would feed into 3. This means Bailey students would meet new peers at Grizel for grades 6 through 8, only to be reassigned again to Scioto, where the vast majority of their classmates, about 85%, would be strangers. I believe in the resilience of our kids, but this feels like Bailey students are being unfairly singled out for a high school experience that could be socially isolating. For outgoing students, it can be challenging. For those who are shy or who struggle with anxiety or depression, it could be really overwhelming. During the October 13th meeting, Board Member Chris Valentine raised this concern. It appeared to be a surprise to you, Dr. Marchhausen, and Cropper GIS offered no response, suggesting a flaw in the analysis that led to MAP 3 being presented. Respectfully, I must ask, how was this violation of a previously stated principle missed? Second, the transportation analysis is deeply flawed. The study starts from Bailey Elementary, but for most families that live in Amberley or Donegal Cliffs, commute times are significantly higher and longer than quoted in your study. Beyond travel time, MAP 3 would worsen traffic bottlenecks already identified in the district's own analysis. Have you considered the additional costs, more buses, more drivers, more fuel, or the impact on students' time, extracurriculars, and family life, or the wear and tear on Dublin's infrastructure? And most importantly, have you considered the safety risks of asking young drivers, bikers, and pedestrians to cross multiple roadways at peak times? Third, the scoring methodology used to evaluate the maps is problematic. Although all criteria were supposed to be weighted equally, the scoring system unintentionally favors maps with 1 or 2 very high scores. This skews the results. A fairer approach would be to index each criterion to 100 points and then compare the percentages. When you do that, Map 1 actually performs better overall. Also, the number of first place finishes doesn't align to the total scores. Map 1 wins in 4 categories, more than any other map, yet Map 3 is awarded the highest overall score. That doesn't make sense. I want to respectfully raise concerns about the process itself. During the October 13 meeting, several board members expressed confusion about the process, the assumptions to create the draft maps, and the next steps. That lack of clarity suggests that this process is off track. I urge you, please don't rush this. Take the time to recalibrate the process and respond meaningfully to the concerns of our community.
23, Kate Clay.
My name's Kate Clay. I have a sophomore at Kaufman and a 6th grader at St. Brendan. My 6th grader attends St. Brendan because Thomas Elementary told me that my dyslexic son was not the neediest child at Thomas Elementary and would not be provided services. The inequities that exist at the building level in this district are the reason I care deeply about the redistricting process. Let's be honest, the issue here isn't about drive times, feeder patterns, or knowing 15% of your peers. The one thing that COVID taught us is that kids are resilient. These so-called problems are about the perception that attending Scioto is a downgrade. That perception is dangerous and toxic. It says more about adults than it does about our kids. Scioto's graduation rate is 87%. Kaufman and Jerome both stand in the mid to upper 90s. If the district consolidates every lowest performing feeder and highest need population into Scioto, we know what happens next because it's happened before. National studies from the U.S. Department of Education and Fordham Institute show that when one school absorbs a disproportionate share of high-need feeders, graduation rates drop 5 to 10 points within 3 years. That means Scioto could slide from 87% into the high 70s. Our advocacy is not about exclusion. It's about belonging and stability. We are not targeting other neighborhoods or seeking preferential treatment. We simply ask for decisions to be rooted in data, in the data promised, and in transparency. At the October 13th board meeting, Dr. Marchhausen acknowledged that mistakes have been made in this process. That is putting it lightly, as the public trust in this process has been lost. In my opinion, those mistakes are so grave that the process needs to be paused and redone with an objective third party, not Dr. Marchhausen, who is a Muirfield resident, engaging with Cropper. If the board nevertheless pushes forward with any of the currently proposed maps, the board has a fiduciary duty to ensure that the final map selected is grounded in transparency, fairness, and supported by objective data consistently applied. As others have mentioned, we also in the South have seen issues with the internal planning team's scoring of the maps. I have a handout that I'll present you shortly. To conclude, we are not asking for special treatment in the South. We are asking for equal treatment, grounded in data and not emotion. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I am Linda Norfleet. I actually want to speak to the parents first. I'm speaking to you as a former middle school teacher, PTO president ×2. I've worked at both Hopewell and Davis. I'm a proud parent of 2, almost 3 Scioto students. They're varsity athletes, they're NHS members, they're nominated by their peers for Hope Squad, they're in junior cabinet. My son's going to be on the stage in the theater tomorrow night. The member of Purple Star Club. We are deeply involved in Scioto. I'm here to speak to you to say we don't like this either. We don't want to be a part of this. Nothing is perfect. But what we want to say, or what I want to say, is we love it here. If your students do come here, we will welcome you with open arms. I will personally, you can have my number. There are so many here that will support you. I will personally make sure your student has the best transition ever. It's hard to be a Scioto family right now, and I know everyone says it's not because of Scioto, but it's hard, you guys. We love it here. This is the best community. We can go to, our kids go to, I'm off and off my notes, but we can go to kids, they live in the pet houses in Bridge Park, the kids that are homeless, and that's real life. Our kids are resilient. So if you do come here, we will love you, and I ask that you, if you do come here, let's change the mindset, and let's tell our kids like it's gonna be okay. Because they're gonna go to college, they're gonna go with kids like all of our kids. We can do this, and we will support you. So it doesn't have to be all doomsday. What I want to say is, like, it might not be that bad. It might be actually better than what you think it could be. Because we've all had, whatever. It might be one of those things where, like, you know, thank God for unanswered prayers 2 years from now. So I just want to say we're here for you if you do come to Scioto. What else? For the board, what I would like to say to you guys is, please, I have lived it. Please do not put all the need in one school. We redistricted. Guys, you're wasting my 3 minutes. Hold on. What I want to say is, we cannot have all the academic need, all the financial need, all the emotional need in one school. We redistricted Hopewell for that reason. I was there for it. I lived it. When we redistricted and changed that and balanced it out, it made all the difference. So again, nothing is perfect. Things need reworked. Map 1 doesn't work, Map 3 doesn't work. What about the student, what about up above above Glick Road? What about that area? Oh, and I know we talk a lot about middle schools and splitting up middle schools. Middle schools, it's not working. Have we ever considered looking at that again? And those feeder patterns, so everyone wouldn't be split up. So all I want to say is, families, if you do come to Scioto, we will love on you. Reach out, we will help. It is a great place. Mr. Cochran's back there in the corner, awesome principal. Thank you.
Rebecca Benjamin.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Benjamin, and I'm on the south side, I guess, France and Hayden Run, and I just would like to point out that it would be a hard drive for us too. So it's not just people that have been saying you wouldn't be able to ride your bike. We wouldn't be able to ride our bike anymore either. So I don't hear a lot of that push and pull. It's either one way or the other way, you know. But just, I haven't really looked at all the complete data points. I'm not really that versed in it, but just, you know, common sense. I see that it's like Columbus City, Dublin School families are being gerrymandered over into this one area. And, you know, I been here for, I don't know, 20 years, and it's always been this side of the river versus the other side of the river. I think there's some, you know, concerted effort or some unconscious bias going on. But I think that I also hear a lot from the admin that if it wasn't for like the new apartment building going on, you know, going up on Bethel, these kids, they keep building and moving in, but I don't hear tons about how the building and moving in from the north is happening. But because I'm thinking like, well, those are Columbus City kids. They don't really belong in this here. But, I started thinking, well, what was the whole win-win, agreement? Well, it was because so that we wouldn't annex, Columbus wouldn't annex, like the sawmill corridor and all that stuff. So there's a lot of businesses. And I was trying to find some information and data about how much actually is Columbus, how much is being collected from Columbus City families, businesses, that is being sent to Dublin City schools. And I couldn't find any hard data on that. So if you're talking about data, I'd like to see that, because I think that the Columbus City families offer a lot of value to Dublin. I mean, you got that whole Walmart, at Carriage Place Center, there's an AEP power plant on Sawmill, and you got the whole Bethel and, Sawmill area. I mean, there's a lot. And so I don't understand then why some of these schools are underperforming when there's obviously some tax dollars there in the community being allocated. Maybe it needs to be allocated more to bring these schools up so we don't have this conversation about we don't want to go to that school because they're the bad school. That's all I have to say. Plus, I'd like to say ed vouchers hurt Ohio schools and Dublin City schools.
26. Lisa, 26.
I'm not taking notes. I'm just going to Bible time myself to speak, kind of from the heart. I'm Lisa Lacasse. I have a freshman here at Scioto and a middle schooler at Davis, and Melinda stole my words. I was going to say, one of my best friends lives in Bristol Commons. I understand the pain, and I am sorry, and we understand that it stinks that you guys have been shuffled. And echoing Melinda, I can tell you, this community is amazing, and that's why I'm here today. I'm also here because this is a working community, and having a meeting start during work hours, we're not getting the representation that we should. So therefore, I'm speaking for the entire community that isn't able to be here because they are working to help support their families. So I just want that to be noted. Also, I feel that this falls on leadership, that we're all fighting. We're all upset. We're one Dublin. This should be your decision. Bristol Commons wants to stay together. Scioto, we don't want to have all of the most vulnerable kids. But it's your job to do what's right for the district. It's not your job to do what's right. And I wish so badly that my biggest concern was if my kids would stay with elementary school friends. I wish my biggest concern was that my kids could bike to school. My kids' friends live all over Sawmill. We have to make arrangements to make it safe. We work extra hard. Again, I work, my husband works, so we have to make logistics in place so our kids can get places. It is extra work. So I understand that it's not ideal, but if you want Scioto to be successful, you have to prioritize the socioeconomic imbalance over kids getting split 2 or 3 ways, or we're gonna be a school that no one wants to go to. We should be spending the time, and Dr. M, I really hope that after this, I hope that you don't just put map 1 down and say peace out and retire and leave Scioto just to continue to fail and have a big gap between Kaufman and Jerome. I would love to see you do what's right, and it might not be map 3, but do something so there isn't such a big gap. What we have to give as Scioto parents, I give 4 times of my finances and my time. I coach. We are a great community, and like Melinda said, we all love each other and we care. But our problems right now are bigger than making coloring books so kids are staying together. We're keeping our kids out of this because they have enough to worry about. We're trying to take this on and show up, okay? So I want to acknowledge that as well, that our kids love it. My son's like, what are you doing? He's going to a soccer game tonight here at Scioto. My son goes to volleyball games. He has fun. My kids are like, what's the big deal, Mom? I said, there's nothing, because everything's going to be fine. It's our job, and it's my job, to make sure that Scioto thrives. And I will tell you, you will see me at every single school board, and I've been to the meetings before. I met with Dr. Hoadley well before all this started. I've been very involved, and I've met with you before at Davis. And you told me a priority was to close the gap. So please do that today. Thank you.
We are at our 90 minutes, so the last one will be 27, Kristen Swisher.
All right, so there seems to be a lot of focus on socioeconomics. I would like to remind everyone that MAP 3 also won on 4 criteria, not just one. The reason I do feel like there is so much focus on socioeconomics is because Dr. Marchhausen, you said with redistricting, you did not want to adversely impact any of the high schools. MAP 1 does just that to Scioto. At the October 13th meeting, I thought it was rather misleading that you brought up the 1% to 2% increase that Scioto would face with the free and reduced lunch crowd. Why are we not looking at the 15% decrease that Kaufman is receiving? Are we not asking where that 15% decrease is going? They're coming to Scioto. I don't think that that is a number that should be disregarded or considered within the standard room of error. 15% of those kids coming our way, that was 319 children. That is 51% of the new proposed student population would be on the free and reduced lunch program. That is also not a number that should be considered not to be an adverse effect on Scioto. I would also like to bring up, I am not without empathy for the Bailey families. I understand Valentine was the one at the October 13th meeting. He brought up a really great point. I did not realize that they were the only school to be split between 3 high schools. It seems to me, though, this is a really simple solution. Why are we not moving PB 15, Murfield, to Scioto, along with some of the peers from Bailey, thus eliminating that is only 32 students in that planning block? Why are they not being moved along to Scioto along with the rest of their peers at Bailey? That would then eliminate that 3-way split that Bailey would face and allow them to split 2 ways. Allow them to split 2 ways just as many other elementary schools do as well. I believe Dr. Marchhausen, you were the one that had said at some point we can't split Moorfield because of neighborhood continuity. But at some point, we decided neighborhood continuity wasn't important at the elementary school level because you've already split those kids off into Bailey rather than going, I believe it'd be Eli Penny. So it seems like that's a false argument to now use when it comes to high school redistricting. As some of my friends have already said as well, I think it's obvious we all care deeply about our children. Emotions are high for everyone. We all love our kids. We want the best for them. I would really like at the end of this, Kaufman and Scioto cannot be enemies. It seems like we are the ones constantly fighting. I know there's some Jerome as well, but we are all Dublin residents. I have friends across the entire district, and I just want all of us to get along at the end of this as well. That's all I have.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I would like to thank everyone for the emails that you have sent, and I can assure you that we have read them all. I would also like to say that the process isn't over. As we're having these conversations, your input is incredibly important and has influence and weight in what we do. This is a community decision, and what we're hearing from our parents and from our community really does matter. So thank you all for the respectful way we talked today, for the ability for us to come together and have this conversation. And we are going to move our group over to Griselle because we have done 3 today, trying to meet with each group's parents as we move along. So thank you all so much. And as I shared several times today, the board will meet on the 29th. That meeting will now be here on the 29th in the PAC. So thank you all very much.